Ashoka, we need some disclosure with regard to your roles now. You were very close to Maithripala Sirisena at one point. What is your role now for the people to understand? Because you were very vocal when Maithripala Sirisena was elected. Are you still with him, or what's your role?
I was with the government. I quit the government. Then I was in the private sector, working in a public listed company, so I couldn't come to these forums.
Yes.
Now I am retired and I'm free to say anything, and I'm here.
Right. Now for us to understand, what is your take? Because I have seen, Ashoka, over the years, there have been a tug of war between the CEB management, the CEB Engineers Union, the Public Utilities Commission as well. This is never ending. It's always a problem. We have been having this show since 2015. Every show that we've had, Public Utilities Commission, CEB and the CEB Engineers Union are fighting. Either they can't project the forecast properly, or either they can't proactively take measures to sort out the Sri Lanka's energy crisis. What is really happening? Just tell us what's going on.
Yeah, now, before the PUSL was established, I was in the energy sector. During that time, what was happening is that there's a tariff division within the CEB. They submit their proposal to the government. Government review and make certain reductions and publish it. That's how that happened. It was not transparent. Now, since the establishment of the PUSL, the process is transparent and visible, and anyone can challenge. Now, there's a process. CEB must submit their proposals. Then PUSL gets certain clarifications and open it to the general public. Then they gather their comments and then announce the final one. So it's very transparent. It's not a hidden agenda now. Now the thing is, the dispute, I think I have to make a few corrections here. It's not annual revenue or deficit or the surplus. We are discussing about half yearly. Because
every 6 months.
Yes, every 6 months. Because now we are getting ready for the July to December season period. Now the process has started. Still, we are halfway. I mean, it's just 5 months now, 4.5 months. So we don't have a clear picture what has happened during the last 6 months. So we cannot adjust that. Because of that reason, this will be compared not with the first 6 months of 2025, but with the last 6 months of the previous year, 2024. Similarly, this happened during the first 6 months as well. Now, at the initial stage, when in January they were in the process, they were comparing the surplus or the deficit of 2024 January to June. Mm-hmm. Then they came up with the figures that there's a 51 billion surplus. 51. Surplus is advance payment made by the consumers. It's not a profit. It's the advance payment paid by the... Why is that? Because of the issues with the forecast. Now let's come to this year. Now during this first 6 months, they are supposed to be carried forward amount of 51 billion, which is an advance paid by the consumers. So if an advance is paid, then from the next bill it will be deducted. That's the basic principle. So based on that principle, the figures ultimately CEB and the PUSL agreed. There was this 51 billion amount. Okay. Now let's assume they are announcing only the first 3 months figures. Now they say they have a loss of 18 billion. Now if you assume that this 51 is divided among these two quarters equally, so it should be, the loss should be 25 billion, not 18 billion, because they are not considering that 25 billion into account. If so, the forecast is incorrect because we had more rain. So the profit they gained during this first 3 months is 7 billion. Because 25 billion allocated, they say they have a loss of 18 billion, so the surplus is 7 billion.
But no one is talking about this 7 billion.
Exactly, that's why I'm raising this issue. Now, if you ignore this 25 billion only, you can say that, well, there's a loss of 18 billion. But in actual practice, If you accommodate that, there's a surplus of 7 billion.
So, Asoka, let's get into these nitty-gritties in the second round and to understand these accounting terms also. But I just want to get to the bottom of this. Now, the PUSL has been established in Sri Lanka since 2002.
Yeah.
There has never been a problem with electricity price hikes. You know why? Because the government who comes into power appoints the PUSL chairman as well. As a result of that, whatever CEB suggests, the PUSL goes ahead and implements. We've not seen a big problem. We've really seen this issue cropping up when Janaka Ratnayaka was appointed as the chairman of the PUSL.
No, it's not true.
It's not true. Okay.
Because right throughout the period, I felt only one instance they had this deviation. Other than that, they were acting as professionals and gentlemen.
So, but professional gentlemen, how much of loss?
No losses. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Let me explain.
So
losses
the CB has to make money.
No, let me explain. Now,
no, tell me. No, I want to understand. Now, you're saying the PUSL has acted as gentlemen. Understood. They can act as
commissioners. I mean,
no, whatever it is, that's subjective. Probably gentlemen.
No,
professionals in your eyes. In my eyes, it may be different. But for me to understand, if the PUSL has done right from the government's perspective to make sure the CEB is profitable, why was the CEB making losses?
CEB is not making losses right now.
Right now.
No, I mean for the during the last 2 years.
No, last 2 years. Forget about last 2 years. Now PUSL has been established since 2002.
No, it there was no electricity act for they to function. It was happening in 2009. Onwards.
Yeah, I know. So from 2009 onwards to date, now Chanaka said 150 billion loss. 150 now.
No, can I jump in there? I'll answer that question. So it's a very good question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, let me finish this first.
Now,
now let me explain the methodology. I think you have missed the point. Now, within this methodology, there's the generation cost divided into 2 parts. Running cost, mainly the energy cost, and the capacity cost. Capacity charge is based to recover the capital. So that includes loan repayments plus the return on equity. So that is included in the formula, right? So additional to that, we have the transmission and distribution. They are if they are getting loans for that, then it's included in the finance cost. It's mentioned as finance cost. So debt repayment, interest payment, everything is included in the formula. So based on that total cost, they look at how to recover that. So all those things happen.
I'll ask you one very simple question. Forget about this Electricity Act. Keep that aside. Was the CEB making profits? Forget about the last 2 years. After the Aragalaya, forget about those few years. Aragalaya was an exception. Ranil Wickremesinghe came into play. He took a hard decision. As a result of that, there were good decisions taken with regard to the country's revival. As a result of that, we also saw the PUSL chairman going home as a result of impeachment as well. Before that, was the Ceylon Electricity Board making profits?
Yes. Let me explain how that's happening, right? From the PUSL point of view,
tell me the year. No,
I'm explaining this.
No, I don't want explanation. I want the year. Tell me the year the CEB was making profits.
Let me explain it. Otherwise, I don't.
No, tell me the year, will you?
Which one? Each and every year, the tariff is formulated to recover the cost.
Okay.
If the government wants to subsidize, they can give a subsidy.
Right. Okay.
So that subsidy is...
the government has given a subsidy?
Yeah, it's a subsidy given to the sector.
Right. Okay.
If so, then there's no loss.
So that's called mismanagement?
No, nothing to do with mismanagement. If the consumers cannot meet the total cost, if government feels that certain segments should be given a subsidy, they can get from the taxpayers and give that benefit to the ratepayer.
Right, okay, thanks. Vidya, you want to add something to what
I think the profit of 2024, the high, I mean, if you look at, we're talking about close to 60 billion excess. This profit is again the incorrect word, because if you look at the books, it's 150, but the recovery amount is only 60, right? Bulk of it is actually came in the first 6 months. And that came because of the weather forecasting error that they did in 23 October.
Plus prices.
No, it's weather. No, it's not, because they did the pricing on the bad weather forecast, because they basically projected a drought when everybody, including the Met Department, projected.
The fuel price also went into
It went in, but there is no significant deviation on that. If you look at the profit numbers, it was really high, because within 2 months they made 60 billion profit. Now think of it like this: the whole revenue for the year is 600 million. Right? By October, they were breaking even. In November, December, 2 months, 60 billion. That was purely because of high rainfall. The reservoirs overflowed, and they didn't have to use any coal or oil. That's the difference. Right? So that's a clear forecasting error that we very well knew. If you read the submissions that was given to the PUSL, including people like us and many other people, they clearly said your weather forecasts are wrong. You do not need to increase a cent. Now, what happened in 2024? The tariff correction came in 2024 February, right? Now, I will tell you something, because you mentioned something about political appointment of PUSL commissioners, right? What happened in 2023 October? There was serious IMF pressure to increase the tariff. IMF got involved in violating the tariff methodology, forcing a tariff on CEB, and that tariff increase actually created a major recession. Now, there were over 500,000 accounts. People could not pay their bills.
This was in 2023 February.
No, October.
October, yes.
October tariff, right?
And 300% increase.
Correct. Now, you asked about...
12 times the for the lower segment.
And there were over 500,000 connections.
So what happened in that process, and this is why it's important to understand what happened, right?
And that was all past loss recovery attempt.
Why is the IMF calling the shots, and why isn't it the government through the regulator taking that decision?
That is part of the problem. Now, see, the IMF has multiple requirements, right? And they are hanging on this short-term issue. You asked about the reform, right? There is a new amendments to the Electricity Act already gazetted by the government, right? This will be placed in the order book of the Parliament on Friday this week, right? A lot of the key components that is instrumental and that is critical for the reform to make it long-term sustainable has been reversed through these amendments. Now, IMF, who really should be talking about the long-term sustainability of the sector, is mum about the reversal of the reform. But they are hanging on this short-term issue with incorrect numbers and making it a debt as a condition to release the next tranche.
Asoka, just to understand now, there is an electricity tariff hike that's going to come into effect in June, whether we like it or not.
No, it will not happen.
It will not happen.
Yeah. Because the data is incorrect. Once they rectify, now let's take that example. Now, last year, as he quite rightly pointed out, from July to December, there was a surplus of about 11 billion, I believe, if I am correct. And on top of that, they have added this 8 billion loss in the first 3 months, which is incorrect.
So the PUSL submission.
Submission, yeah. So submission is one thing. Final determination is a different thing. That's what I'm going to say. Because that's incorrect. Then as soon as you remove that, it reduces from 18 billion to 18% to 14%. Sorry, 18. Now they were expecting an 18% increase. Now it will be reduced to 14% at a glance, because they have incorrectly included two deficits into one is deficit and the other one is surplus. So it's incorrect. So basically, as you remove that, this will be reduced from 18% to 14%. And on top of that,
so this will come down to 14%.
Yeah, at a glance, you can say that. It's very clear. On top of that, they have estimated an increase in transmission and distribution sectors. Generally, if there's no inflation during that period, there's no reason for that. So I think PUSL will further investigate that, and then there will be cross checks, and that may be reduced. I'm not sure.
So Ashoka, what you say is like this is a issue with the accounting
No,
fee.
he's saying
No,
that
these
they
are
are not-
submissions. These are the submissions.
I mean,
It's a
They are
tariff
not
submission.
using the matching periods.
right.
No, that's
That's
not-
one thing.
That's
Yeah.
one thing. You're right, because see, the tariff submission is incorrect. That's what.
So
Ashoka said.
Vidura, in your opinion, how much should the tariff be increased?
Max 6% based on my calculation.
My calculation is 4%. Let's see. This will decide. Because this is a transparent process.
And what Ashoka and I are doing, I mean, independent accounting, we didn't talk about this before, but what we are doing is we are just reading the tariff submission. There are two documents right now out. One is the tariff submission made by CEB and the PUSL consultation document. And when you read that, it's very clear. There's 18.5 billion added additionally, which has to be taken out. But Ashoka had said about distribution and transmission, there is allowed revenue that is determined by the PUSL in consultation with CEB beginning of the year. They cannot change it mid-year. So this is incorrectly done.
Right.
There are a number of charges that are incorrectly done.
So you're saying 6%, you're saying 4%.
Presence of oil-fired power plants mainly. Not because of hydro or renewables or coal. It's mainly because of oil-fired power plants. So we have to get rid of that. So how to do it is a long-term generation plan. We have discussed that separately.
Yeah.
Long-term generation plan, if they were formulated in a proper way about 20 years back, nowadays we could have absorbed less expensive indigenous resources like solar in large quantities.
So Vidura,
So can I give you some context, because your viewers might be getting confused. Hydro generation, which is our natural gift, I did the calculations before I came. It's about 4 rupees a unit, right? Which in their forecast they say it's about 33% to 35% for the next period, the hydro generation. Then you have coal. It is 20 or 25 rupees, I forget. Right? So that gives you what he's saying.
the gap.
Then you have thermal. So I was given a rule of thumb, you take the diesel price and divide by 4 and you will get the rate. So 50 rupees for furnace oil, 60 rupees for diesel, etc.
70.
That's how, 70?
70.
So it depends on what the prices are,
But
right?
the power plant is.
So that's for your viewers to get an understanding what we are talking about and how sensitive the hydro is, because this is coming at 4 rupees. So instead of 33%, if it suddenly becomes 40%, there's a huge saving. There's a massive saving because this is coming at such a low price. This is what is going on here.
So we have to put our hands and pray to God.
Yes,
that
I always joke with
But
God
on
is
the
a
other
Sri
hand-
Lankan basically.
But on the other hand, if you are switching to solar, so it's complementary.
But it's not. It's not.
no,
Because in the document, solar, because it was such a generous tariff, is coming at 29 rupees.
No.
No. You didn't understand the context. Now,
This is wrong.
That's the standardized tariff, right?
No, that's what.
No,
the
let
total
me explain. So within that, the main component is the capital, right? So capital, when you compare getting at commercial rates, it's one thing. If it's doing in a different way, it will be the interest rate will be lower. Then the equation will be changed.
for future.
So anyway, it will be anyway cheaper than even coal in the future. So
Give us an example. The Indian solar power project in Sampur, how much is it going to fetch at?
No, that is at a very high, 6 US cents or something. There's a battery storage. But let me explain. The existing solar, which has significantly expanded, that is there in the submission documents, is coming at 29 rupees.
Okay, I
Right?
need to make a correction, right? I'm just using the specific numbers in the PUSL consultation document. The average price of coal for the 7 months is 21 rupees, right? Average price.
With the fixed cost also?
Yes, because you can't. That's okay. That's the capital.
No,
If you
but
want
that's not the way they do the submission.
No. They have both of it.
Okay.
Now, for the renewables, that is combination of solar, mini hydro, everything, it's also 21. right? Now the difference, there's a key difference here. All of these renewable sources that we are talking about are rupee tariffs, right? Coal is not rupee tariff. It goes up with rupee depreciation. So sometimes I see a lot of analysts confusing it. Even Sampur, even though it's solar, it is still a dollar tariff, right? So even if you pay a little bit more on a rupee tariff, when you average it across the 20 years, it's actually cheaper. Now, we had the same conversation, Shamir, you remember, when we were talking about this during the Sampur coal power conversation, the argument was 22 rupees for the first 7 years, 15.50 for the next 13 years is hugely expensive, right? It's the same argument you're making now. But now, how much are we paying for those power? 15.50. After the hydro, that is the cheapest. It's more cheaper than coal. The wind power projects that was done. So if you don't differentiate a rupee tariff and a dollar tariff, this is incorrect because you need to do a levelized cost, taking the rupee depreciation in place. The second argument here, and we are going into procurement because a lot of misconception on the procurement. There is a collective attack on the rooftop solar. There is a collective attack from the current CEB and the ministry. Right? And there's an attack on this feed-in tariff mechanism, right? Where you fast-track a project based on an agreed feed-in tariff, which is revised on a periodic basis, right? On the basis that this is more expensive than a tender, right? This is, in multiple ways, this is a wrong comparison, right? Because the reason why those tariffs are given, now even on countries which has a liberal market, let's take for example India, these feed-in tariffs exist, right? Why? There is a reason for it, because these processes reduce the transaction cost, right? If you try to convert this type of capacity on a tender, CEB will not do even 10% of what is on the ground. Right. Now the third one, how do we compare? Now there is a piece about hydro, and I want to get to one comment that Asoka also made. What solar electricity has done to this country is that it has indirectly removed use of oil directly removed use of oil during daytime, because now we have so much solar, we don't need to run oil plants in a generally case during daytime. It has indirectly removed oil from the night peak. How did it do that? Because now there's so much of solar electricity coming. We have 1,700 megawatts of rooftop solar. What it's doing is it's reducing the hydro use during daytime. That leftover hydro, now we have enough to run in the night time.
Right. With Asoka Begunwardhan, in terms of reforms, how important are reforms for the energy sector in Sri Lanka, especially electricity?
Is this the final round?
Yes, the final.
Yeah, okay. Let me conclude by saying reforms is a must because CEB has failed to provide a better picture and to sustain the sector, and they are committing a not existent loss at present. So it has become a chaos now because definitely these seasons are not loss making. So they are erroneously saying that this is loss making. So that itself gives the indication that we have to go for the reform. But in order to do the reform, first thing we have to do is to strengthen the regulator. Unfortunately, what is happening right now is to weaken the regulator and get the political intervention on top of that. That's exactly what's happening with this act. Because regulator was doing a fair job and they are obstructing it, citing that IMF is putting conditions, which is not the case. So first thing is restructuring should happen. For that purpose, to facilitate that, we should have a proper regulation. But unfortunately, government is going in the wrong direction. Secondly,
government is going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but they are coming up with amendments which weakens the regulator. That's what happened because they were saying that we cannot get the IMF next installment because regulator is doing something wrong. And they wanted to get that hold so that government political intervention can do it in a better way, which is incorrect. Which is incorrect because they don't understand.
But this government won't do that.
They are doing it now with the amended act. Now it's on the table. It gives power to the.
But they were not given a mandate to do that.
So that's up to the voters to decide that what's happening.
Once you give the
Okay,
mandate,
let me finish that this final round. So that's first thing. Secondly, long-term generation expansion plan plus the long-term transmission plan should be integrated to a single plan, and then only we can see in the next 50 years what's going to happen and what are the current prices and what are the prices, the trends for the future. So, long-term generation plan submitted by the submitted to the PUSL by the CEB, it's not in line with the real situation which originally happened for the last 30 years also. And there's no transmission plan submitted by the CEB to the regulator since 2018, I believe.
Yes, correct.
So, integrating transmission to generation is very important because the future of energy sector in the world is 3D. First thing is decentralization, meaning that every consumer is becoming a prosumer, meaning that all of us will be generating energy rather than getting energy from oil well or a coal mine and have a central plant, 1,000 megawatts one spot, distributing it among the... No, it's not the future. Future is renewables scattered, and each and every consumer will be becoming a prosumer. He will be producing, and excess he can sell to the bulk consumers who cannot have the required amount on their own. So first D is decentralization. The second one is digitalization. Smart grid is essential. Without a smart grid, the decentralization won't fulfill. And thirdly, it's direct current. So 3D principle is the future. We should achieve that by 2050. It's all agreed. I mean, as a tropical country, we can achieve that by 2040 if you have a proper strategic plan. So to that extent, I think we don't need to worry about the urgent matter because only solution at present is to go for renewables, mainly solar. So we have to accommodate that. There should have been a pump storage power plant by now, depending on the 2015 long-term generation plan. There should be a up and running pump storage power plant by now in 2025. That has not happened. Now they are discussing about 2035, I think, right? So they have postponed it for 10 years. But there are other ways of doing that. Now we have the Victoria and Randanigala. We can consider those as ponds, and we can easily convert without environmental and social issues. We can do it in few years. We don't need 10 years to do that. So we have to fast track. This is the least cost option of storing, because that will survive for more than 100 years. Why we are getting benefit at 4 rupees per unit for hydro? Why? Because it's over 60 years now. We have no capital repayment issue. So that's why it's cheap. So
what is the point of transforming those into ponds?
Exactly, to absorb. No, I mean, ponds means now pump storage means pump storage. Now we have to pump from the lower pond to the upper pond. Mm-hmm. So that stores energy in the form of water. That's the principle. So that was the cheapest one. We have now huge potential for that. On top of that, we have to see how the battery storage costs are reducing. The trend we have to see. It's reducing at a terrific rate. I mean, that's how, when we were discussing about solar about 15 years back, it was about 100 rupees per unit. Now we are discussing about 20 to 30 rupees or less than 20 rupees as per the CEB announced the new tariff. So, further reducing. So we have to consider the trends without considering trends for another 50 years. Because once you commission the final one in another 20 years, it will operate for another 30 years. So we have to look at the future, and based on that, short-term solution and the long-term solution are the same.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Asika.